done so much for me, I cannot tell it all. If I had 10,000 tongues, it still wouldn't be enough. When you hear completely. Chuku my robe and more. If he can you let we sing What shall I render to Jehovah? For he has done so very much for me. Come on, everybody. What shall I render to Jehovah? Hey. For he has done so very much for me. Nara, 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 yeah. Nare, kele, nare, kele, mo. We sing nara, 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 yeah. Nare, kele, nare, kele, mo. Nare, kele, What shall I render to Jehovah? For he has done. What shall I render to Jehovah? Lift your hands. One more time. Jungle Church. Hey. Lift your hands. You alone deserve the glory, Jesus. You alone deserve
Never do, never do, never do. Oh, money, never, money, never, money, money, never, money, money, not know what you can even money, money, never, money, never, money, money, never, money, money, you can keep, you can even money. When you've been a corrupt in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, in a bill, tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, never, money, never, money, money, never, money, money, now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor, money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. Now I know what you can even money. Oh, Joseph.
God, you are awesome. So, it turns out exactly a year ago, right now, right this minute, a year ago in Hong Kong, an extraordinary protest began. Protest begun by students, literally high school and college students, elementary school students. Then their parents felt a little embarrassed that they had let the kids work so hard. The parents showed up as well. And the protest was about a law. And the law was proposed by China. The law was to determine how the governor of Hong Kong would be selected. And the law said the ultimate aim was the selection of the chief executive by universal suffrage upon nomination by a broadly representative nominating committee in accordance with democratic procedures. Okay, so the idea was there's a two-step process. The first step was nomination, and then the second step was an election. And the nominating committee would be comprised of about 1,200 people, which means out of 7 million people, that is 0.02% of Hong Kong. All right, now 0.02%, as you can see, is a really tiny number, right? Really, really small. If you thought about it relative to all the people in Hong Kong, it would look something like this. This tiny little corner is 0.02%. So 0.02% get to pick the candidates that the rest of Hong Kong gets to vote among, and the protest was because the fear was this filter would be a biased filter. The claim was that the 0.02% would be dominated by a pro-Beijing business and political elite, so 99.98% would be excluded from this critical first step, with the consequence, obviously, of producing a democracy responsive to China only. Okay, now it turns out the Chinese stole this idea from America. Don't worry, there was no patent or copyright, so there's no IP violations going on here, but they stole the idea from an American, maybe the greatest political philosopher in America, a man named Boss Tweed. Boss Tweed, the head of the Tammany Hall political party, used to say, "I don't care who does the electing, as long as I get to do the nominating." So this conception, this kind of conception of politics has an obvious logic to it, right? Because if you control the nomination, every candidate is going to worry what you, the nominator, think, so you practically control the candidate whether or not you control the ultimate election. We can call that genius theory for destroying democracy, Tweedism. Tweedism. Any two-stage process where the Tweeds get to nominate and then the rest get to select is Tweedism, and the consequence of Tweedism, obviously, is to produce a system responsive to Tweeds only. Now, Tweedism was practiced not just in the North, not just in New York, it was practiced in the South too. Texas, 1923, practiced Tweedism. By law, in 1923, Texas passed a statute that said, in the Democratic primary, only whites could vote. Only whites could vote. Blacks could vote in the general election if, of course, they could get registered, given all the barriers to registration, but only whites could vote in the Democratic primary. And, of course, back then, hard to imagine, but back then, the only party that mattered was the Democratic Party in Texas. So in this two-stage process, blacks were excluded from the first stage, 16% of Texas excluded from this critical first stage, with the consequence obviously producing a democracy responsive to whites only. Now, those cases are obvious to us. Everyone looks at that and says, there's something obviously wrong with those so-called democracies to set up their structure in that way. So why don't we see it here? We take it for granted in the United States that campaigns will be privately funded. But we need to recognize funding is its own contest. Funding is its own primary. We have the voting system where people vote, but in the first stage to that, there is a money primary that determines which candidates are allowed to run in those voting elections. Now, that money primary takes time. Members of Congress and candidates for Congress spend anywhere between 30 and 70% of their time dialing for dollars. This is an old telephone, you might not recognize this, but dialing for dollars, calling people all across the country to get the money they need to run their campaigns or to get their party back into power. B.F. Skinner gave us this wonderful image of the Skinner box, where any stupid animal could learn which buttons it needed to push for its sustenance. This is a picture of the life of the modern American congressperson. As the modern American congressperson comes to learn which buttons he or she needs to push to get the sustenance he or she needs to make his or her campaign successful. This is their life, and it has an effect. Each of them, as they do this, develop a sixth sense, a constant awareness about how what they do might affect their ability to raise money. They become, in the words of the X-Files, shape-shifters, as they constantly adjust their views in light of what they know will help them to raise money, not in issues 1 to 10, but in issues 11 to 1,000. Leslie Byrne, a Democrat from Virginia, describes that when she went to Congress, she was told by a colleague, quote, always lean to the green. And to clarify, she went on, he was not an environmentalist. So this obviously is a primary too. It's the money primary. It's not a white primary, it's the green primary. It's the first stage in a multi-stage process to select the candidates who will represent us. So if this is the structure, we should interrogate who are the funders. Well, we can think about who the biggest funders are. In 2014, the top 100 gave as much as the bottom 4.75 million funders to congressional campaigns. In this election cycle so far, 400 families have given half the money in the election contributions and contributions to super PACs so far. 400 families. That's not American democracy. That is banana republic democracy. And then we can think not just about the biggest funders, but think about the relevant funders. Of course, the people giving millions of dollars have the attention of the members of Congress. But how much do you need to give to be relevant? How much do you need to give to matter to those Congress people as they're dialing for dollars to raise money from you? Well, let's take the people who maxed out in 2014. And in 2014, that means you gave $5,200 to at least one candidate in the general primary and in the general election. 2014, it turns out 57,874 Americans maxed out in that way. So we could say 57,874 gave enough to matter, to control, to be the dominant force in this first stage of the election process. And then some of you out there, the math geniuses out there, beginning to do the numbers, you're thinking 57,874? Wait a minute. That's 0.02% of America. 0.02% of America dominate this first stage in the process of electing the candidates who will represent us. They pick the candidates, because you can't be credible unless you get their money, and we get to vote for those candidates. This tiny fraction of the 1%, this Chinese fraction of the 1%, dominate this first stage with the consequence, obviously, of producing a democracy responsive to these funders only. This Princeton study, which is a Harvard professor I'm not allowed to talk about much, so let's get it off the stage quick, by Martin Gillens and Ben Page, the largest empirical study of actual decisions by our government in the history of political science, related the actual decisions of our government over the past 40 years with the views of the economic elite, the views of organized interest groups, and the views of the average voter. And what they found was there was a nice correlation between the views of the economic elite and what our government actually did. So as you go from 0% of the elite supporting something to 100%, the probability of that proposal being passed goes up. Same thing with organized special interest groups. As the number of them supports something increases, the probability of that proposal being passed goes up. Here's the graph for the average voter. It's a flat line. Flat line, literally and figuratively. What this is saying is, as the percentage of average voters supporting a proposal goes from 0 to 100%, it doesn't change the probability that that proposal will be enacted. As they put in English, when the preferences of the economic elites and the stands of organized interest groups are controlled for, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact on public policy in a democracy. This is true. Right, so here's the picture that we had, we were told, of our democracy. There we were, citizens driving the bus. But here's the reality. The reality is, the steering wheel has become detached from this bus. We don't drive the bus anymore. We do not anecdotally, in the most aggressive empirical analysis, have no relationship to what our government does. This is a product of tweedism. Tweedism. And what tweedism is first corruption. It's a corruption of the design of our representative democracy. When Madison gave us our representative democracy, he described it in Federalist 52 to be a system that would have a branch, Congress, that would be, quote, dependent on the people alone, an exclusive dependence. But that's not our Congress. They're dependent on the people and dependent on the Tweeds. And then to go on, to clarify, Madison in Federalist 57 said, by the people, he means, quote, not the rich more than the poor. Not the rich more than the poor. But that's not our reality. The people today mean not the rich more than the poor, except for the Tweeds. The Tweeds have more power than the middle class and the poor. This is corruption. It's not criminals. It's a system in which decent people who come to this city to do the right thing find themselves bent to do the thing the Tweeds demand, because that's the only way you can survive. It is corruption, but it is caused by a basic inequality that we've allowed to evolve inside of our representative system, an inequality. Remember Orwell's all animals are created equal, and what we've got here, all animals are created equal, but the Tweeds are more equal than others. It is inequality. But what's critical about recognizing that it's inequality is if we could remove the inequality, if we could address that fundamental inequality in this representative democracy, if we could neutralize this Tweedism, then we could crack the corruption that makes it impossible for our government to do any of the things we want our government to do. We could achieve a system dependent on the people alone because only the people would be having the influence inside that government. It would be a system where not the rich more than the poor were the people because everyone would, because of this equality, have the capacity to press the government in the direction they want the government pressed. Equality. I'm not talking about wealth equality. That's important to worry about too. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the equality we have as citizens. Now to get that, what I've been arguing we need to talk about is a statute that Congress ought to pass tomorrow. Statute, let's call it the Citizen Equality Act. And what the Citizen Equality Act does first is it changed the way campaigns are funded, to make it so that instead of this green primary, we have a money primary, but citizens are funding these campaigns as much as anyone else. The money comes from all of us through proposals like the American Anti-Corruption Act or John Sarbanes' Government by the People Act that would provide small dollar public funding to fund congressional campaigns so that they wouldn't be dependent on this tiny few to fund their campaigns. That's the critical first dimension of equality we ought to insert back into this representative democracy. And there's other inequalities inside of our system. We need equal representation inside of our system. This article, this fantastic article written by Christopher Ingraham for the Washington Post, graphs these gerrymandered districts in the United States. These are congressional districts in the United States. Here's my favorite example of this. You can see the natural community that bonds these people together here. This is a system, they said it's crimes against geography. That's kind of a nice way of putting it. But this is a system where the politicians are picking the voters. The voters aren't picking the politicians, and they pick the voters to create safe seats. Democrats and Republicans both play this game. So in our Congress today, 90 seats are competitive, which means 345 seats are the safe seats, which means if you're a minority party in each of these 345 seats, you don't matter to the representative because the representative knows he or she doesn't need you, which means 89 million Americans are not represented in this system because we structured this in a way that makes sure that these people don't count. That's inequality. And Fair Vote has a proposal which is incorporated in the Citizen Equality Act to radically change the way we make these districts work so that we have proportional, fair representation across the country. And finally, an equal freedom to vote. The absurd ways in which we make it hard for people to vote, and it's not accidental how we make it hard for people to vote. In the last election, 10 million people had to wait more than 30 minutes to vote, which for people with nannies and iPhones might not seem like a bad thing, but if you're a working family who can't afford that kind of support, that's a poll tax that's too high for too many. And of course, as the Brennan Center found in a study that they made of this poll tax is correlated strongly with race. It's racially correlated in the sense that where there are black or brown districts, they're less likely to have the resources necessary to make it possible to vote easily. That, of course, I think is more directly correlated with party, which leads to many proposals incorporated in the Citizen Equality Act, including the Voting Rights Advancement Act that would attack some of these provisions that make it hard for people to vote, and Bernie Sanders' suggestion of Democracy Day, where we move voting to a holiday so working people can vote just as easily as those who don't have to. So these three ideas get wrapped into one statute, a statute Congress could pass tomorrow to achieve this equality, to make this representative democracy possible. Okay, now I push this as the core fight we ought to have. And people say, well, why? There's so many issues out there. Why would you pick this one to push? And there's a practical reason. The practical reason is we will get nothing from this government till we get this. You want this government to address the problem of climate change? We will not get climate change legislation until we address this fundamental inequality in this broken democracy. You want Congress to address the problem of Social Security, to make sure that there is Social Security. We will not get a government to address that problem until we fix this democracy. You want Congress to address the problem of student debt. We are not going to address the problem of student debt until we address this problem of democracy. So it's not that this is the most important issue. It's not those issues are the most important issue. This is just the first issue. This is the issue we've got to solve if we're going to have any chance to solve the long list of critical problems that we as a nation must address. So practically, this is why we need to put this first. But it's not just practical, it's moral. 400 years after slavery came to these shores, I think it's time we have a peaceful fight for equality, that we have a campaign, a national campaign, everybody who rallies around the idea that it's finally time that we stand up for this idea of equality. It is an embarrassment to our traditions that in 2015 we have movements that need to assert that Black lives matter. How could that possibly be? But I can tell you that it is because we have a political system that doesn't count us equally. We have a political system that counts some more than others. We have a political system that betrays the fundamental idea of a representative democracy. 54 years ago, Martin Luther King went to Lincoln University and gave a speech in which he said, "America is essentially a dream. The substance of the dream is expressed in these sublime words, words lifted to cosmic proportion, that all are created equal." You've heard it said that the Pope shouldn't talk about climate science, so I shouldn't talk about what the Creator meant. But let me tell you about the reality, whatever the Creator meant. The reality is we are not equal in America today. The reality is we do have second-class citizens in America today. And the reality is, until we confront the fact that this ideal is a fantasy in America today, we will not begin to have a democracy that represents us. We need to learn from our brothers and sisters 50 years ago who risked their lives to fight for equality. And we need to learn from our brothers and sisters from all the way around the world who are risking their lives now to fight for equality, to love for equality, to sacrifice that sense of love, to sacrifice for equality. Because if we don't, how will we look at our children who look back at us and say, look at what you inherited and then squandered? Look at what you had and then left to us, because we were given the nation with the potential to be the greatest democracy in the world, and we have allowed that potential to die. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
In our everyday conversations, we typically talk about dictatorships and democracies as if they are completely different categories. But I want to convince you that we should see dictatorships and democracies and all different societies as being on the same continuum. Think of a continuum with absolute dictatorship on the one hand and absolute democracy, or what I call actualized democracy, on the other hand. All countries begin as dictatorships. For example, even the United States started as a dictatorship, being ruled by a king from overseas. Some countries have made quite a lot of progress moving from dictatorship to actualized democracy. However, no country has yet become a fully actualized democracy, including Western countries. And we have many countries that are still fairly dictatorial. For example, Iran and North Korea are examples of countries that have made probably the least progress towards moving away from dictatorship. And the largest dictatorships at present are China and Russia. Of course, they have changed. For example, Putin's Russia is more open than was Stalin's Russia. And the current Chinese leadership in the 21st century is more open than Mao's China. However, they are still closed societies, and they still do not allow dissent in the way that democracies should allow dissent. Indeed, when we think about the difference between dictatorship and democracy, one of the most important differences is voice, the ability to express one's thoughts freely. One of the tests for a democracy is what is called the town square test. Can a person go to their local town square and speak out freely without fear of arrest and even death? Of course, another very important test of democracy is what I call the vote them out test. Can you vote out the national leader? In many countries, you can vote somebody in, but it's very difficult to vote them out. For example, countries such as Russia and Iran have elections, but these elections are utterly meaningless because the outcomes are already preordained, because the candidates are pre-selected, and there is no real choice between candidates because the candidates all represent the same thing. Another feature of the movement from dictatorship to democracy is the ability of people, ordinary people, to participate in elections and decide the leadership. Even in the most important elections in the United States at the present, about 50% of the eligible voters participate in the elections. This is one reason why the United States is as yet not an actualized democracy. People have not fully engaged in the democratic process, and they are not fully engaged in selecting the leadership. Of course, some people would argue that this is a good thing because they adopt an elitist view of democracy and believe that only a minority of the citizens should be participating in politics. As a psychologist, I'm particularly interested in the psychological foundations of dictatorships and democracies, and my focus on dictatorships and democracies is very different from traditional psychology. In traditional psychology, there has been a great deal of research on leadership, and particularly in the case of dictatorships, the focus has been on the personality of the dictator. There are hundreds of studies of the personality of Hitler, Stalin, etc. And the argument has been that there is something very special about the personality of the dictator. My approach has been to focus on the context that gives rise to dictatorship rather than just on the personality of the dictator. I have argued that in terms of personality characteristics and personality traits such as narcissism, there are always potential dictators in every human group. You know that there are potential dictators where you work, and there are members of your family who could become dictators in terms of personality. What does not allow them to become a dictator is the context, the opportunity. I put forward in my book, The Psychology of Dictatorship, what I call a springboard model. The springboard enables the potential dictator to spring to power. And the springboard comes into position under certain historical conditions. For example, in Germany in the 1930s, a springboard to dictatorship came into place, and Hitler, a potential dictator from among many, sprang to power. In any context where a springboard to dictatorship arises, there are many potential dictators who could use that springboard. And of course, it is going to be the most ruthless and Machiavellian among those potential dictators who grabs the opportunity and actually springs to power. So individual differences do matter. They do make a difference. One of the claims in the discussions about dictatorship has been that the masses are kept in their places in dictatorships through the power of ideology. For example, the argument has been that in communist countries it is the ideology of Marxism, or in Islamic dictatorships it is the ideology of Islam that keeps the masses in their places. I see things very differently. In dictatorships that I have lived in or traveled in, I have found that actually if you get to know the people, even if they're illiterate, most of them know very well what is going on, and they are not fooled by the ideology. They know very well that they live in corrupt dictatorships. What prevents the people from rising up against the government is simply the guns held to their heads. It is naked power that keeps the masses in their places. However, ideology does have a very important role in dictatorship. Its role is to keep the elite ruling group cohesive, so that they, through their cohesion, can use force to keep the masses in their places. So the role of ideology in dictatorships is a very important one. It is to make sure that there is conformity and obedience at the very top. That is why when there is the least ideological nonconformity at the top, the leader does not tolerate it and immediately gets rid of the dissenter at the top. However, what you do find in dictatorships is dissent among the people at the bottom. You get into a taxi in a place like Tehran, and people will very quickly start talking about the corruption in the government and how terrible things are. But if anyone at the top of the regime makes similar comments, they're eliminated very quickly, as dissenters found in the 2008-2009 period when there was some dissent in Iran. One of the most important assumptions that we make is the assumption that there is an inevitability to historical development. Both the left and the right make this mistake. On the left, we have the Marxist view that there is historical development towards a revolution, the overthrow of capitalism, and the rise of a proletariat, and eventually the classless society. On the right, there is this end of history thesis that assumes we are headed inevitably towards a world where capitalist democracy dominates. Both the left and right are wrong in this instance. There is no inevitability to historical development. It is not inevitable that we are going to move towards more openness. We could move backwards. If we look back historically, there have been times in history where there was more openness and then there was collapse. In Athens, 2,500 years ago, there was more openness, and then there was collapse when King Philip defeated the Athenians. The Romans had a period of greater openness and some democracy, and then they went back into tyranny. More recently, Germany was a democracy, and it went into the Nazi era and tyranny. In recent years, we've had a number of countries where there was greater openness, and now we've had more backward movement into tyranny. The Arab Spring brought momentary hope to tens of millions of people, but in many ways, in most countries, it led to, again, a closed society. We must not assume that there is an inevitable march forward. The struggle for openness and democracy is a struggle that requires conscious effort, and it requires conscious effort particularly in Western societies where we have not yet achieved actualized democracies. So the movement is not inevitably forward, and it requires conscious effort to reach, to become more open.
In you. Say it, y'all. Jehovah, you. I trust. Say it. Show me how to do it, y'all. I believe. Say it. Say it.
I believe you.
I trust. Come on.
In you.
Oh, Lord. Come on.
Jehovah, you.
Where y'all at? Come on. Come on.
I trust in you.
I believe. Say it.
I believe.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of wonder.
You are the God of wonder.
You are the God all powerful.
You are the God of power.
I believe. Say it.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
Say it, y'all.
I believe. I believe.
Come on, let your feet get heavy. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Somebody make some noise in here. Come on, catch it, Jehovah. I trust
I trust
in you.
in you.
Oh, Lord, say it.
Oh Lord, Jehovah, you.
I trust.
I trust in you.
I believe. Say it. Everybody say it.
I believe you.
I trust.
I trust
Come on.
in you. Oh
Y'all
Lord,
got your part over here. I can't hear you. Come on, say it.
I trust
Say it.
in you.
I believe. Say it.
I believe.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of wonders.
You are the God of wonders.
You are the God of miracles.
You are the God of power.
I believe. Say it.
I believe. I believe.
Say it. Say it. Say it.
I believe. I believe. I believe.
Now everybody get radical with 30 seconds. Come on. Dance on the devil's head. Come on. Come on. Come on. Y'all ain't radical enough over here. Balcony, I can't feel ya. Move your feet. Everybody.
Never know. Never know. Oh, money never
Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I know what you can I do.
money. Money never
Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, you can keep your conniving money. When you've been up for a bum, and I've been tell me money. Now because your money done, you come with conniving money. When you had your pocket full, and I've been tell me money. Now because your money done, you hustle to tell me money.
yes, money never
Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, now know what you conniving money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a get a piece. A 2 pound note and a get a piece. A 2 pound note and a get a piece. This is all the money that me walk for.
I said money never
Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I know what you can I be money.
Oh, Joseph.
Come
is Konganaya outside of Demico, the western pavement of Demico, and they are of course performing some cultural tunes Saturday morning.
neighbor joker, neighbor joker, neighbor joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This is all the money that me walk for. Money, neighbor, money, money, neighbor, money, money. I don't want you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
Oh, Joseph, poor me. Oh, Guyanese, poor we. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, are you morning? Morning. It's now 15 days of September. It's the 15th day of September in the year 2021. And it's now 7 hours 15. Welcome to another program of Buxtonian Morning Time.
Low battery.
This one ain't got no manners. I am your host, Kidaki Amsterdam. It's Wednesday, the day when I get to spill my guts. And there are lots of things which I will get to spill my guts about. But you know what? Most of those things, if you ask me, quite frankly, even concern me. I should be minding my own business. You know, they say, mind your own business. Let me first say condolences to the Thoms and relatives and friends of Maxwell Thom. And at the same time, apologize to the relatives and friends of Maxwell Thom who are of the opinion that I'm politicizing his death. They say sometimes you have to explain yourself. And sometimes you just don't give a damn and you don't explain yourself. Well, I think I owe it to the relatives and friends of Maxwell this morning to explain myself. So here goes my explanation. First and foremost, they say all politics is local. Secondly, I always argue that everything that affects our lives is political. And thirdly, I'm bold enough to say, with due respect to the family, that Maxwell's untimely death, as many of us would say, is as a direct result of politics, poor political decisions being made. Yes, some people believe that, in a time of bereavement and so on, these are not the things to deal with. But I need to explain myself with all due respect to the family. When I say Frank Anthony must go because he is incompetent, I've been saying that very long. And so when I posted yesterday that he lied about Maxwell's death, and I asked what else he lies about, and in the same post I said he must go, that was me simply continuing a call, a campaign for Frank Anthony to go because he is incompetent and he is dishonest. They say you never reveal your source as a journalist, but I will say this much. When I posted that Maxwell had died, it is information I received directly from a family member of Maxwell Thom. I got the chronology of events from that family member. I also asked whether or not he had been vaccinated, and I was told that he had taken at least one dose of the vaccine. And so when everybody was listening to Frank through Nazima Ragubir, that Maxwell was not dead, he was resting comfortably in the ICU. I held my ground and I said, if I had to choose between a family member who gave me that information and Frank Anthony, if I had to choose by measuring their credibility, I would rather lose my head on a block for that family member. It's as simple as that. Right? I would, as they say, I would put my head on a block for the family member because there is no benefit for a family member of anybody to claim that they're dead, when for a fact that person is alive. There can be no benefit. Right? And so I stuck with my post. Lo and behold, 30 minutes to an hour after, there was confirmation from Frank Anthony and his minions that Maxwell was declared dead at about 11 hours. Declared dead and dead is the same thing. Declared dead is a technicality to say the time when they declared him dead. That doesn't mean you didn't die before. That means that is the time when the coroner, is it the coroner, the pathologist, looked at the body and pronounced, yeah, this man dead for truth. Right? So I'm sticking to my guns. Frank Anthony lied to the nation when he said that Maxwell Thorne was alive and resting comfortably in the ICU. With all due respect to the family. And I know for a fact that they believed the information that they received that said he was dead at the time when he was dead. Not when Frank Anthony said he was pronounced dead. And we as a society, we have to learn to hold our public officials, illegitimate as they are, accountable. A lie is a lie. And a lie affects credibility. And it puts people in a position to always have to weigh your statements. How much of this statement that this man has made is truthful? He says the pandemic hospital is adequately staffed. Family members of the late nurse Vanessa said there were 64 patients to 4 nurses. That is 16 to 1. That is not even adequate staffing for a regular healthcare facility, much less a facility that is dealing with a pandemic. I think it is Dr. Cummins who said, the worst case in such a situation, you should have 3 to 1. 3 patients to 1 nurse. But ideally, you should have 1 to 1 or 1 to 2. Right? So, it didn't have to be Maxwell Thorne's death for us to recognize and identify these things. But it so happened that it is Frank's pronouncement on the death of Maxwell Thorne that, if you want to say, gave us an insight, a clear insight into his deception. I read somewhere they say Mr. Thorne was exercising. He was exercising the ICU. This is a bionic man. I don't know, I'm not a medical person, but somebody can tell me how possible it is for one who has been placed in the ICU, intensive care unit. That is what ICU means. Intensive care. Someone who has been placed in intensive care, how possible it is for them to exercise. As far as I know, in intensive care unit, you're always hooked up to some kind of tubes or some machinery or something. Right? And in the case of COVID-19, if you are in the intensive care unit, it suggests that you're having severe problems, severe breathing problems, because your oxygen level or utilization level has dropped to a critical state. Who then will encourage any patient to exhaust themselves by exercising? So this is Nancy Story. Got to be Nancy's story. Right? Nancy's story. And for as much as Guyanese are prepared to accept this nonsense and these nonsensical answers, Jagdio got a right to call all of them. Not all of us, because I ain't accepting this crap. mental retards. For as much as Guyanese are prepared to accept these nonsensical explanations time and time again, we are nothing but retards. And so the illegitimate government has a right to push us and shove us and jab us and do whatever they like to us, because we are behaving like retards. Right? That's what we are behaving like. People must hold public officials responsible. The time has come for Frank Anthony to go. He's incompetent. He has no interest in saving the lives of the people who go to that pandemic hospital. From the time the illegitimate cabal was installed, Frank Anthony criticized that hospital. My information is that they made no special effort to continue on the developmental trajectory that the coalition had it. They made no special effort to ensure that it was adequately staffed, that it was adequately furnished, and many of the critical implements and apparatus were present. So as Rwanda like to say, the slaughterhouse is a place where you go to die. Guyanese must determine whether or not they will sit back and accept that status quo, and if they will continue to allow their relatives and friends to be sent to Liliendal at the pandemic hospital to simply die. All politics is local. When political decisions are made, it affects our lives. And it costs our lives in many instances. It costs the lives of our loved ones. The question I want to ask this morning is, they've been issuing statistics, as they call it, data. Now I see they're reporting on the deaths of people with an additional bit of information, vaccinated or unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. Right? They're trying to make a case that the unvaccinated are dying in larger numbers than the vaccinated and the partially vaccinated. The reality is we all are dying. We all are dying. Unnecessarily so. Unnecessarily so. As soon as somebody gets identified as having COVID-19, the first thing they do is send you to Liliendal and leave you there to die. That's not health care. So the question I'm asking, I want Frank Anthony and the chief medical officer to say to this nation, for the last year, how many patients were sent to the pandemic hospital? How many patients were sent to the pandemic hospital? How much are you admit there? And what was the recovery rate? That's what I want you to do. Provide that information to the citizens of this country. They are entitled to it. How many persons were sent to Liliendal? How many recovered? As against how many died? It would also be instructional for you to issue that information with age category and ethnicity. So let's have it. Give us a pie sheet, a pie chart, or a Manhattan. Give us some kind of statistical diagram along with the necessary explanations. Over the period of a year or so, we admitted so many. These were their age ranges. These are their ethnicities. So many recovered. So many died. These are the age range and ethnicity of those who recovered and those who died. Give us that information. Let the nation be the judge. Right? Let the nation be the judge. And so we can determine if a majority of the people going to the pandemic hospital are recovering or if a minority are recovering. But a cursory glance suggests that the majority are dying. Right? So the hypothesis could be most patients who are sent to Liliendal at the pandemic hospital leave there dead. That's the hypothesis. Somebody can do the research to prove it otherwise. Right? Somebody can do the research to prove it otherwise. Don't just come and tell us 90% or 84% of the people who died are unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. We don't want to hear that. Let's do real statistical work. And since Frank is so competent, he should be happy to provide that information. Because it will make him look good and make his government look good. And perhaps convince citizens that they must take the vaccine, it will save their lives. Let's have that data out there. Let's put it out there. That's how you convince people. You show them the evidence. People like to say, show the evidence. I'm asking for the evidence. I'll show the evidence. I played 2 videos this morning on governance, dictatorship. I hope you all paid keen attention. There were many democracies that became dictatorships simply because the people weren't vigilant enough. Simply because they were or are as divided as we are in this country. If you didn't hear it, my encouragement is after this live, go back to my page and listen to the live from the start, and you will hear it and educate yourself. I don't seek to make people's death political. The death of every man diminishes me. That Martin Carter said, I will lend my shirt as a banner to the revolution. And so if my death or anyone else's death has to be used to illustrate the nature of the government which we're dealing with, so be it. So long as it serves to contribute to change in the society, education in the society, because education is supposed to bring change of behavior. And as long as our leaders, our children, our relatives are dying the way people are dying in the COVID-19 hospital, I will continue to argue that the deaths are political. Because you have an illegitimate government who has refused to work along with the representatives of more than 217,000 people in this country towards finding a solution to this problem. You have an illegitimate government who, it has been reported, has been sending medical people to work in communities that are predominantly of their kind and their support base, either to prevent the spread or to cure those who have been affected. And that's a political decision. The decision to discriminate on a health issue according to community is a political one. It is a political one. I asked the question, I think Monday. Is the government involved in euthanasia? I asked yesterday, is the government involved in genocide? And those questions are specific, and I asked them because of the evidence. If you look at the evidence, the larger percentage of the people who are dying are in their 60s. They're our seniors. Is the government happy that they're dying off? Is the government happy to leave them to die so that it will save them social services costs? They claim that majority blacks are dying from the disease, the virus. Is the government happy to leave them to die in the interest of reducing the number of black people who are perceived to be supporters of the coalition so that they will have an electoral advantage? Is that what we have happening in this country? Look at the president. The president is, while in opposition, the legitimate government said, when we get into office, we are going to ensure black people run from this country. We're going to make enough of them run. Why do you want them to run? Because you want to have superior numbers. And so if ordinarily you can't get them to run, you're not getting them to run, then you might be very well happy to see them die. You might very well be happy to see them die. And so it is political when the government says to the task force headed by a black fool, Uncle Tom, super, I will come to him just now, it's okay for the boys over at St. James Surf Carnival. Black people like a good back and I'll let it go then dead. It's okay for the boys of the East Coast to have a football tournament. Black people like a good sport, let it go there and dead. It's okay for this equipment businessman to have a good sport. It could go till 7 the next morning. Let black people go there and dead. They are political decisions. Because who is in charge of the task force? A politician in the name of, we name? Mark Phillips, super. You only hear about him when the PPP has trashed the throat. That's when you hear about him. But he is the figurehead of the task force. Those are political decisions. It's a political decision that allows places like Carnival, Casino and so on to remain open with large numbers of patrons inside. Political decisions. It's a political decision that gives you a curfew that is nonsensical. Right? And so it is politics which is costing us our lives. It is politics which is costing us our freedoms. It is politics regardless of how you see it. And unless we as a people recognize the implications of the political decisions, we are going to continue to suffer. We're going to continue to remain divided. And we're going to continue to allow the politicians to do as they like, when they like, and how they like. Right? Let me make a public request. God forbid, I'm taking all precautions, but I'm begging you. I'm begging y'all. If by the stroke of unfortunate circumstances y'all are COVID positive, don't send me to $1,000,000. Not send me $1,000,000. I ain't got Gloria 50 from Buxton back downside for buying up them thing and give me for drink. Because I believe our treatment will be more effective, efficacious is the big word, than what I will do for me at $1,000,000. In the meantime, I will do what some of my medical friends advise me. Use enough zinc and vitamin D. I talk about zinc when I just put my house. Right? I will use a lot of zinc and vitamin D and other multivitamins. I will eat well, as I like some tonic that's come from kitchen. I believe in kitchen tonic. I will boost my immune system. I will wear a mask every time I go out. Let my children tell you, even in the house I just wear masks. Because the reality is, my family members go to the road and come back. They interact with people and they come back. My wife works at 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, whatever you call it. She has to interact with staff and the public. So even in the house, I just wear my mask. And sanitize. So wear your mask. Sanitize frequently. Maintain social distancing. Physical distancing. 3 to 6 feet apart. Avoid crowds. Avoid crowds. Avoid crowds. I might be one of the biggest football fan, one of the biggest cricket fan, but I'm a fan of life. And so the big game they're playing could wait. Even if it got to wait forever. But my life is more important over that. And so I don't have to see the football match. I don't have to see the cricket match. I don't have to go to the party. I don't have to go to the launching of because we don't care. No. Because whatever benefits I'm supposed to get from because we don't care will not stop if I don't go. I can stay home and let them lunch and eventually they're going to distribute. I can get me own. That is how people have to see it. Old people say not everything come knock you got that. Right? And old people know what I say. Old people are always right. So let us take the necessary precautions. If you choose to get vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you believe you can deal with it, deal with it. If you choose to remain unvaccinated, your choice. But take the necessary precautions. And taking the precautions is equally important for the unvaccinated and the vaccinated. Because we have seen, we have heard that even though you're fully vaccinated, you can contract the virus still. And as in the case of Cummings, according to him, he is fully vaccinated, contracted the virus, and is asymptomatic, which means that he was showing no signs that he was COVID-19 positive. Can you imagine what that is doing? I had spoken earlier and I said this vaccine will give people a false sense of security. Because here is a man now. He's showing no signs of COVID positive. He's interacting with staff at the GRO on the basis that he is COVID negative. Because he is fully vaccinated. He might have been interacting with members of the public on that same basis. People would have been interacting with him on that same basis, thinking that, hey, I am fully vaccinated, I'm protected. And so you drop your guards, you don't wear your mask, you don't sanitize frequently, you don't keep your physical distance because you feel comfortable you're fully vaccinated. But oops, here is comments among others saying that, imagine I had this thing and I didn't know. So I become a carrier. Unwittingly so. Those are the things people have to be aware of. I'm begging y'all. Everybody, every single human being, take the necessary precautions. Right? Now with Samantha Caesar with her ignorance. After encouraging vaccine hesitancy, I now want to blame the government. I've been blaming the government from day one, so I don't want to blame them now. I've been blaming them all the time, and that's the thing with me, Samantha. I'm not a flip-flopper. I stick to my guns. As I say, I'd rather die in my ignorance. And up to now, none of you have proven me to be that ignorant. Right, Samantha Caesar? I know it's not your right name. You somebody pay you for come say something, so come good. Right? I blame the government from day one, and I will continue to blame them. Because instead of making decisions which are medically sound and balanced, what we have been having from this illegitimate cabal are political decisions to deal with a medical crisis. Was I wrong to criticize the government for buying Sputnik at twice the market price when it's not approved by the WHO? Am I wrong to criticize the government for bullying citizens? To accept a medical procedure against their conscience? Am I wrong for criticizing the government for kicking people off of their jobs because they exercise their right of choice? Well, if that's what you think, Samantha Caesar, you can continue to live in your ignorance. And it is people like you, who allow democracies to become dictatorships. Because once you soup warm enough, you don't care about the others. I don't look for my soup. Right? I am hard working. So I ain't gonna pray for nobody make it easy for me by give me a raise here and give me a raise there and give me the freedom to break the law and so on. I always say I'm not afraid of the police because I don't commit crime. Okay? Right, Samantha Caesar? Go drink your warm soup. It might keep your mouth shut. You're tuned to the Buxtonian Morning Time. It is now 7:48, 7 hours 47. Wow. Wow. I guess I said a mouthful. Right? I'm going to take a break. Station break as they call it. And when we come back, I'm going to play a voice note. From someone who looked at the program this morning. Because I want you to benefit from their wisdom.
because your money not your hustle for tell me money. Yes, money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, not know what you can even money. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. A 2 pound note and a kill that piece. This is all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I know what you can have in money. Oh, Joseph.
Oh, Joseph, for me. Where are we? Poor are we? All Guyanese, poor we. Because the crises with which we are confronted, unless we deal with them and we deal with them as a nation, all of us will be up shit creek with no paddle. We're heading there quickly. But y'all sit back and drink your soup. You know, there's a funny thing, you know. They said that is the great equalizer. Oh, shoot, sir, I was having something warm. I want to drink milk, but not like Kazarki. Y'all remember Kazarki? Kazarki said, I want to drink milk. Or was it Shorelines? I want to drink milk. It's what he did, oh. I want to drink milk. That is a black tea business. I want to drink milk. The PPP offering milk. Not for you drinking milk and soup. But remember what ended up of Kazarki and a lot of the others who wanted to drink milk. Kazarki died on the hospital bed. Allegedly murdered on the hospital bed by medical practitioners taking instructions from the illegitimate, well, at the time perhaps they were legitimate, from the racist and criminal cabal. Y'all remember? There are other people I can name who met their demise on the questionable circumstances. At the Georgetown Hospital, when Leslie Ramsamy was Minister of Health. Laptop Ramsamy. When Berry Strip and Slap was Minister of Health. They told them our advisors to Frank now. So who say that other people are gone dead under questionable circumstances? Huh? The other Buxtonian name or David Leander, I think he named, they use a Cali biscuit. Dead under questionable circumstances. I think he was on trial for some murder or something, I can't remember. But when it appeared as though he was going to win his case, the powers that be decided, nah, you ain't walking free on this one. Even if the judge wants to set you free, we won't let you go on this one. You got to pay with your life. Right? So, whatever your name, don't forget your name. You all have me. What's your name? Whatever this thing name, you see, I got shallow memory. I don't remember things. Anyhow, that one will come there drinking your soup. Remember, it's milk Kazarki they want. And he had milk. Remember Sam Mines? He didn't want coconut water. Well, and he got himself served. Except his beverage came from the fuel pump at one of the gas stations. He had a good dose of kerosene. The PPP like kerosene. Jagger used to drink kerosene in Parliament. Oh yeah. Oh. Right? Y'all understand that? Sorry, I want drink at the PPP table. Good? I try. I try there. What the Bible verse say? Thou hast prepared a table before my enemies. Is that it? My cup runneth over. But it ain't coming from nothing. It ain't coming from the PPP. Anyhow, let me play this voice note for you. Because I like the fact that the viewer was listening to the extent and internalized, and then can reinforce if I can see that. Listen to this one.
Yes, Mr. Kadaki, I just finished listening to your audio about allowing the potentials to die. The person speaking on your show this morning talked about the ideals of democracy. And he quoted Dr. King, speaking in the university, allowing the potential of democracy to die. We don't have a perfect democracy in Guyana, but we have a semblance of it. Some semblance of governance that seeks to go about doing things, at least on paper, in a democratic way, at least on paper, the Constitution. It is in the hands of our leaders, those who are in Parliament, and those who are in the private sector, which have a heavy control over the Parliament. These are the persons who are allowing democracy to die at the helm in Parliament. Those are in the court system, because the courts are a branch of government. The DDP, those are the ones, in particular, the DDP, who are facilitators of allowing democracy to die, where justice needs to play its part as a necessary and requisite facilitator in a democracy, in a democratic process. So the legislative branch needs to play its role. You have the speaker there playing favoritism. So there's no equity, there's no checks and balance, there's no due process, there's no fairness where the speaker is concerned in Parliament today. He is allowing the potential of democracy to die in the Parliament on a daily basis. That's what we see. You've got the executive government who is doing the same thing with vindictive and dictatorial policies. And currently, with the current vaccine policy, it's a total disregard of equal protections of the law. Yes, that's what I see on a daily basis in Guyana, allowing democracy to die. And Granger at the helm is not without fault. In whatever secret way he negotiated, he also allowed democracy to fall. He also contributed to disregard of certain processes. He contributed to those factors. And as a result, every action has an adverse reaction. To allow people to take your place in government when the evidence does not substantiate it means that you are complicit in facilitating a fraud. Disenfranchisement. Because to step down from office when the PPP have so many irregularities, dead people's voting, overseas people voting, military votes disenfranchised, and 49 ballot boxes unsubstantiated. These are all reasons why Granger should have knowingly remained in the seat of president. So he's a facilitator. Because he
he contributed to what's going on today. Many of us are. Many of us are. So I enjoyed the speech you had this morning on your show. It appears as though someone was speaking from the United States Congress. So now we are at the crossroads, whereby the people are now mobilizing a movement. It is out of dissatisfaction that this movement came about. This movement is not a movement by the politicians. This movement is a movement as a result of total dissatisfaction of those who allow democracy or good governance to die.
Yes, there you had it. It's not a normal order of things, but you have to be prepared to change the order of things sometimes. I'm talking to things. I'm talking about what I see happening in this society. Y'all recognize that the SWAT team, special weapons and tactics, ain't got no tactics. Well, SWAT has killed an Essequibo businessman. Y'all recognize that? I want to play racist, he black. Let's start from that point of view. Why am I starting from that point of view? Police don't kill Indian people with money in this country. Y'all ever say? Police don't kill Indian people with money in this country regardless of the crime. I said it. As a matter of fact, police allow Indian people with money in this country to commit crimes. And then they take $64 million, etc., to cover up the crimes. Y'all understand that? Now, I'm reading a story this morning from Big Smith. They say we ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing. But let me premise this by saying that I recognize since the change of the government, since the installation of the illegitimate cabal, Big Smith seems to be the media source to get police information from. Right? Comes across as the police press unit. Because as soon as anything happens within the ranks of the police force that is newsworthy, you can find it on Big Smith. So you all must ask, was the arrangements made or existing between Big Smith and the hierarchy of the police force? Right? In Ghana we usually say quid pro quo, no? Hand wash shall make hand come clean. Right? Hand wash shall make hand come clean. You wash me, you scratch me back, I scratch you back. So it would seem as though there's some kind of relationship like that between Big Smith and the hierarchy of the Ghana police force. Hey, we're going to give you information. You sanitize it first for us. And I usually tell people I'm not as brilliant as some people seem to think. I'm just observant. Boxing back outside, I was taught to be observant. Right? And I will tell you, I usually observe a lot of things before I make pronouncements. And my family will tell you that too. I usually tell them, I don't jump to conclusion. Take your time. You're going to arrive at a point some point in time. And when you take your time, you're not going to be necessarily wrong. Right? So what have I observed? Y'all remember they had a sergeant named, was he a sergeant? A traffic rank named Hope? I think at the age of 32 or just about 40 something. I can't remember the exact age of the man. But Hope was a young traffic rank. Hatan. Hope died a few months ago from a heart attack. First person to report on Hope's death was Big Smith. And something which raised my eyebrow was the last sentence in the paragraph, in this story. Y'all could come for me. Oh Lord. I'm talking. Hope died when I would say it was perhaps the first bout of bullyism where the Ghana police force was concerned. Where it was mandated that on this particular date there was going to be the vaccination drive at FAPC, Felix Austin Police College. And there were to be no failures. I remember that instruction, no failures. And some days after, Hope died from a heart attack. And so people were most likely starting to wonder, is the vaccine this man taken dead? The very last sentence in the story published by Big Smith was that Hope did not take the COVID-19 vaccine, or Hope was unvaccinated, something to the extent. One would ask yourself, you're reporting on this young policeman's death by heart attack. What's the relationship between his death by heart attack and the fact that he was unvaccinated? And so eyebrows were raised. My curiosity piqued. Good. I mean, I was observing all the time. But when that particular story was done, I said, something there, by there's more in the matter than kettle. Right? Something there. There is more in the matter than the kettle. I got to watch this by Big Smith. And I continue to watch Big Smith. Well, guess what? A businessman was shot and killed by the SWAT in Essequibo sometime in the course of last night, this morning, whatever. First person to publish the story is Big Smith. According to him, it's an unfolding story. Right? It's an unfolding story. But the details reported by Big Smith there are details that are worth interrogating. Did the SWAT travel to Essequibo because of report of these illegal activities? They weren't named, you know. A list of illegal activities. That is all his story said. Did the SWAT travel to Essequibo because of complaints about these activities? Were the reports of these complaints specific? Did they identify possible perpetrators of these activities? What caused the SWAT to take up tactical positions around this businessman's property, or in something Boston, I think his name is, right? Or in Boston. What caused the SWAT to take up tactical position around this property first and foremost? As a matter of fact, I think most importantly, what gave rise to the SWAT going to Mr. Boston's property instead of the quote-unquote regular police? We want to hear all of that. Why is it regular ranks did not go to Mr. Boston's place? Police station in Essequibo did not go to Mr. Boston's place. This is a businessman according to Big Smith. So he must be known by the ranks on the Essequibo coast. And them police is no Harlem businessman. They just go for the perks. Right? So the question is, why these ranks didn't go there? The ordinary ranks from Essequibo. Why did it take the SWAT to go to this man's place? Was he resisting? Did he pose a threat to the law enforcement officers? that they had to take up the tactical positions according to them and breach his property. His property had to be breached. And here is where I like ignorance, because that is what I see it as. There was a time in this country where every citizen that was shot by the police attacked the police, usually with a knife or an ice pick or some inconsequential weapon. They attacked the police and they were shot to death. Y'all could remember them time? So here is it. They breached Mr. Boston's house or property, wherever he's dwelling. And he attempted to snatch a policeman's weapon. Yeah, we do. He attempted to snatch a policeman's weapon. Now you gotta be a bionic man again. You gotta be bionic to see a whole team of specially trained headhunters, because that's what they are. A team of specially trained headhunters breached and entered your home, your dwelling, and you're outnumbered, but you are crazy enough, you are superhero enough to attempt to snatch the weapon of one of them. And you tell me, you all tell me, what part of this sound like sense and logic? Because first and foremost, I will have to assume that Boston is capable or was capable of using the weapon. Remember the acronym for SWAT: Special Weapons and Training. Special Weapons and Training. So it is assumed that is not regular weapon with these people going to be carrying. So Boston must have known. But by as soon as once I get me up on the gun, I gonna do damage to attempt to snatch it. You ain't gotta reposition it. Right? You ain't gotta release the safety from it. You don't have to know if it is loaded. Just snatch it backside. Right? Just snatch it. And so they say he attempted to snatch the weapon and he was shot. Attempt to commit a crime is committing a crime. Right? And so we have another citizen dead on ice. Happens to be black. Some kind of businessman and the Essequibo. Question I want to ask is, who stands to benefit from his demise? Was this regular police operation? What report of crime was made to cause a SWAT to go to Mr. Boston's house? That's the question I want to ask. Y'all could look for the answers. I'm only the rabble rouser. Right? I'm only the rabble rouser. And I'm waiting for them to come for me. Right? I'm waiting for them to come for me. Like how they came for the teachers. Who is this the way I want? Good morning. This lady wait for home, not the line she just called, but the lines are now home. Call her live.
Hi, good morning to all viewers. Good morning, Chance. People, what I would like to say, in this situation right now, what we are facing, You guys need to know that right now we are fighting a battle that we cannot see. This is a battle we cannot see. Our nation is being covered by a dark force that is trying to take us over one by one. Everyone needs to be strong. I heard somebody say the other day on this day program that coffee don't make any sense. Yes, coffee do make sense. Get y'all drums, put on y'all African clothes, cook up, go out there, beat your drums, and call upon y'all ancestors to help you fight this battle. This battle is an unseen battle. Going out and meeting with these police officers and all these kind of things that they're doing are not going to make any sense. Y'all need your Bibles, get y'all high wines, get y'all drums. This is what y'all need to do. We are fighting. We are bigger heads who is controlling them and telling them where to move left and how to go right. Remember, a lot of them don't want to end up like, I wouldn't call the name and take on the thing that when they're calling comes and want to know who said this and who said that.
I don't keep calling.
But people, look at Revelation chapter 13. Read from verse 16 right down to 18 and it's going to tell you everything is in your Bible. Open your Bible and read. And then y'all will know exactly why these measures are being taken towards us. Because they know we wasn't going to take these vaccines. So they're finding their strategy. And they're only going to get more drastic with it because the time going to come. They're going to want to come in your house. They're going to want to turn off your water. They're going to want to cut your lights. All kind of things they're going to do. They're going to want to do just to meet the day target. Once they meet them targets, no restriction is going to be lifted and things are not going back to normal. Things are only going to get worse. So people, get your drums, your iron, go and beat your drums and call up your ancestors to fight this battle. This battle is an unseen battle and keep saying it all the time. Our nation is being covered by a dark force that is trying to cover us. Prayers is the key. There's one of the biggest keys right now. Is only our Father could help us within this situation. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Yeah, pray, but yeah, walk too. In short, let me interpret what the caller is saying. I hear other people say it before. I ain't gonna give them the chance to say it. Let me walk some over here. Because they said the PPP walking over here. Y'all notice they said Jack Dale got to Suriname? They said the best over men and women in Suriname. Yeah. Y'all don't take me lightly, you know. I just say what I want to say. Some people just like dress it up and think. They got the island over here according to some people. And so, as the old people say, steal, you have to cut steel. Right? Steal! You have to cut steel. But on another note, Guyanese got to act. Guyanese have to act. Because if you don't act, you are going to remain in subjugation. Good? When they can't win you, they just try to control you. Good? Y'all notice the teachers are suddenly the apples of Priya's eyes. Y'all recognize that? Yes, teachers are the apples of Priya's eyes. Priya and our cohorts they couldn't wait to launch the teachers benefit package. They're launching it today. They tell you be careful with COVID. The numbers are rising. But they are hosting another mass spreader. This time at the Artichoke Convention Center. Right? At the Artichoke Convention Center. Today they're inviting teachers to go to the launch of the teachers benefit package. Y'all want to hear something? I'm looking for show y'all what the teachers gonna be getting. And then we're gonna talk. I like to act the thing. They don't like when I talk the thing. But the thing is always worthwhile talking. So let me see how these images is going to open up. Alright, good. There you go. Number one. I gotta go where I can get it. Let me tag the thing. There's a black screen, bye. Well, I take this guy. Call your live. Good morning.
Morning, Kadaki. Morning, Guyanese people there. Is it? I'm thinking that the Guyanese people love, majority of the Guyanese people love, and preferably Indo-Guyanese, love the corruption, love what is happening, and cannot see it, and go back to what they've been doing for 23 years. It is amazing that they can put up a pig, or the fat man, as you say, and they'll blindly support that man. He is uneducated, cannot speak, but yet still he have run and been selected to be president. So it's amazing how they have followed without any questions. But on the opposite side, in our party, APNU, we question. So we're not just going to follow blindly. So that cult figure in that PPP, and it just don't make sense. So they prefer the lawlessness and the killing. And what you just explained in reference to the person who got shot, it's totally unacceptable that the Guyanese people, lots of Indians, are simply, agreeing with that. The more silent you stay, the more it looks like that's what you want. And I think Guyana is in for some serious trouble to be going back to the 23 years and now 24, 25 years. So seriousness need to be taken, and I really cannot see we coming out of this, right, until these folks are removed. And in the event that the APNU get back in there, you cannot be playing nice with these people. You've got to jail them, lock them up, and for corruption to end, you get back in there, down to government ministers. If you're found to be in corruption, either like other places, your hand get chopped off, and you need to send serious message to government official, down to police and other folks who are doing corruption, and they need to be jailed to be made an example, to cut it out, because for 23 years you had this corrupt. For 5 years things were going good, and then bam, they're going back. So I really don't know what is, yes, the answer is to get rid of these people, and the people need to rise up. That's what I guess it will take. But so far, I'm not sure if the, Guyanese are ready to come out there and to really do the job that's needed to get rid of this evil PPP party. That's my take.
Thank you, caller. Yes. So the thing is, $15,000 gift certificate. Philip Williams Photography. That's one of the things that teachers will get as part of the Welfare and Support Benefits Program. $15,000. I want you to pay note. $15,000 worth of photography. Well, teachers, you are going to pose up, and you are going to model up, and y'all gonna dress up and y'all gonna take $15,000 worth of photo because they care. Taking photos is part of your welfare. Yes. Taking photos will improve your situation. Right? So there you have it. That's one of the vouchers you are going to get. $15,000 worth of photography. Now, I want to tell you all something. Every other voucher that you're going to see me put up on this screen is less than $15,000. And it is supposed to go to something more meaningful than photographs. So these dunce thugs, when I tell you up your dunce bad, y'all don't believe me. Right? They have their priorities mixed up. The question is, really, do they have their priorities mixed up? Or they want to keep the church and others in ignorance and poverty? So you can get $15,000 to go and take photographs. But your uniform material, for you to dress and look decent to go to school to teach the people's children, you only give away $4,000. There's only the seamstress money, mind you. Right? Y'all hear me? You can go to Shandas for uniform material, but you could only get $4,000 worth. Whether it's discount or whatever it is. But we're going to give you 3 times that for photographs. So buy your quarter yard cloth from Shandas, make your mini skirt, and get $15,000 worth of photographs. Call it live, good morning.
Good morning, Kadaki. Everything the PPP does, there is a well thought out motive behind it. When the teachers go to get their photos taken, you know what they are doing? Building a pictorial database on the teacher. I go to get my photos taken. I have to give my address, who I am, my name, and all of that. And my photo is in a system, is in a database. Because I like to post so much, yes, I'm going to come. I'm going to be lured by that bait. We need to wake up and become critical thinkers. These people are insulting our intelligence. You know, we need to wake up. We need to wake up. It's very insultive what they're doing to us. All right then.
Thank you. Right. So you could go buy a quarter yard cloth, make a mini. I'm going to take out $15,000 worth at Philip Williams Photography. Are you going to hear a story just now? Because they only give you $4,000 for that. And if you want some grocery, because it's important that you look at your nutrition and you eat well and so on to boost your immune system and so, you can go across by survival. We only give you $4,000 to get items though. Right? Only $4,000 food you could buy. $4,000. Only $4,000 food you could buy. Last but not least, that's not the last. You can go across. Now teachers use a lot of stationery. Right? Teachers use a lot of stationery. The teachers could tell you how much of their salaries they spend on a monthly basis or termly basis to create learning aids, teaching aids for their children, for their students. Teachers spend a whole lot of money on learning aids, teaching aids. Right? They got to get stationery to make them. Cardboards and markers and scotch tape and so on and so forth. But you could only, we gonna give you $5,000 to go at Metro and ease the burden. Right? We gonna give you 5,000. You could go at Metro, and you could get some stationery value $5,000. I think I'm missing one. I don't know where it is. Let's see if I find it, boo. Got that somewhere by way there. Anyhow, here's another one. Let me take this call while I look for the other one. Caller live, good morning. Caller live, good morning. Caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, bro. It's a long time I've not made a contribution on your program.
Financially? Go ahead, sir.
What do you know? You know my status, right?
Go ahead, sir.
I'm calling two main reasons. This government, or to a lesser extent, the Don's Gal prayer, at the North Sea level, I have a daughter that was supposed to go because I send them out yet, and I think I send it out. I think it's done when you take it. I prefer mine a done than to bury a dead. Now, at the North Sea school, grade 2, if I take my daughter out there, I have to spend 4 hours a week with her. 2 hours on the first day because I gotta go to school on 2 days. For two days she have two days she gotta go to school. Now they are doing something what they call, men are too bright, men know what I mean. I mean it's something like diagnose, but it's a diagnostic. They can do some diagnostic on the child. So the parent has to be there in school with that child for 2 hours. Now these are the very people who are locking teacher out, who are trying to prevent COVID, but they are encouraging children at a nursery school for 4 hours a week, not knowing whether those parents were tested or if they had the COVID injection. 2, I think the country's economy is in tatters. Why I say this is because last Monday I went to GRA to upgrade my license, my revenue license, and I was told I cannot enter because I don't have a COVID test or this CR something.
PCR.
So I cannot enter. Yes, I cannot enter. Lo and behold, I decided to stand up there for about 20 minutes. And for the 20 minutes I stood up there, you had about 20 people going in and all were turned back from doing their business. Now, equate that to other institution of the state, other financial institution of the state, and you can come to the conclusion that I come to the economy, if it ain't crumble already, it's crumbling. Now on my way back home, a young policeman stopped me at the number 62 toll gate or outpost. Used to be a toll gate, it's now converted to outpost. And give me a recognizance that I have to go and pay $10,000 because my revenue license has been expired. Now, you have brought out so much foolishness that is going on in this country. I've observed so much foolishness that is going on, and the entire Guyanese populace are witnessing the foolishness that is going on in this country. Now, the policeman tell me he ain't going to break the law. He ain't going to if I go anti-arrest us, but I break the law. So, those are the two things that I want to talk about. And I also want to tell you, on the quarantine here, I can tell you that teachers, one of them sent a supportive of things that will affect them and their children in years to come. This is my contribution, Kadaki. Have a blessed day. You and your viewer.
Let me tell the caller that shutdown, as they call it, there are two dimensions. Business owners could close the doors, or patrons could stay out of businesses. So I don't care who leave their business open. You got your money in your pocket, is you got control spending it. Right? Keep that one in mind. Let me talk about the Teachers Welfare and Support Benefits Program. So you notice they get $5,000 to go and buy shoes. I mean 4,000, sorry.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning to you, caller. You're live.
Yes, I'll be on my way up to Buxtonian a few.
Alright, you know, you just tell the whole country, right? I'm live on the program.
Oh, sorry.
It's alright.
Good morning.
Alright. When I see your call again, I'll answer you offline.
Okay, alright, good.
Yes. Here's the story now. $4,000 of footwear. So let's analyze this thing. Just let's analyze this thing. It's necessary for teachers to get shoes, uniform, and stationery. Of course, food. And all of those things in the package are valued at $4,000 each. Call A Live, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Karaki. My problem is that I used to go to Central Assembly and I hear Pastor Smith used to say, render what is to Caesar. Right? I am looking at this thing in this point of view now. So I waste a lot of time going to church. When they talk about the rapture, who gonna go and who gonna stay and what have you. Now, they're saying you got to vaccinate to go to church. When I got a date now, and me dead guy go in the church, me a vaccinated, me dead can't go in the church, right? Muslim, they don't go in church. They dead is go to gate. Hindu, the pandit does go to the house and do the ceremony for the dead and carry it. So you could see definitely where this nonsense is coming from. And nobody cannot stand up for us. You understand? Because them ain't care. Because them ain't gotta go to church. Them dead ain't gotta go in church. So me all got to go in church is thing. This thing with this COVID here. COVID is not saline and oxygen alone. Saline, you got to get food and feed these people to fight the virus. I know about hot lime juice with sugar inside. You give them to drink. Keep hot thing. Give them a lot of hot thing to use because I used to work at the farms and with all them old people, we used to boil bush. I used to get the bush, boil the bush in a big pot and squeeze the lime in a bucket, in a mug, and mix the tea and throw the lime juice in the bush water and give the resident to drink. Help them with it. Every day they get a cup of soup that they could get some hot soup plus the fruits and what have you. We used to give to them. That saved them from only, I think we had about three person die with COVID in the year. And we had a whole ward full with them. You understand? And we used to treat them. So I can't understand why everybody vaccinated and they're still dying. What is going on in this country? And these people just don't care. They don't care nothing about nobody. What we turn to now? They can't buy oxygen. The same thing will happen to India like it can happen to Guyana. But I rebuke it and I cancel that in the name of Jesus. This nonsense got to stop. These people, I know the backward, the forward, them is studying these things before they do it. I know as a child growing up, me mother used to say, count your cars before you start your structure. But them ain't counting nothing. They don't care what's happening or what's going on with people's life. You tell people vaccine. You don't know if they're hungry, if they're getting food, how many people are walking, how much getting to eat. Me granddad to take the vaccine, she getting a cold stirred. You have to deal with her. I have to look after she with the old bushes that I know. And she's okay right now. I got the grandson, he gonna take it to. He mother said, poor headache. Why he tell she got to know what she got to do because this is her child. But this is what I tell you, you're not educating people about this thing. As you get there, you dump them at Lillian Dam there. When they go there, they go in the other region they go in. What is wrong with these people? Them in care, them ain't got no feelings for people or also. Distribute vitamin C and all these things to them different health care. When I used to work in the farms, they used to give we vitamin C, vitamin D, and what have you, double D and all they used to give us. And since the government go in the contract and sign back and I go home. So this is what they ain't thinking, and then the people who they put in at Little Dam for cook for these people that knows nothing about how to deal with these people. Diabetics, you give them unsweetened tea. You don't unsweetened porridge. You don't give them anything. Food is essential for these people. You got to give them food. They got to eat. If they don't eat, they're going to die. And I see it with myself because we had 180 something residents we used to cook for. So I know what's going on. They need to get people who know and who have idea to feed these people. Not anybody they picking up just because they want the cooties and get some money, they poach them. And certain Indians in the whole cannot cook these kind of food. They can't cook it. I got Indian family, my mother is Indian. So I can tell you straight up, they cannot cook it. They cook a certain thing, roti and curry rice and curry and rice is all they do. You understand? So they need to get proper people to give these people proper food. And the diet must be proper, and we can save life. That's my take for today.
Thank you, Carla. Let me make a disclaimer. I don't know who the nutritionists are at the COVID-19 hospital. I don't know who is cooking and who is providing meals and who is doing meal planning and all of that, assuming that they're doing it. Right? Back to my teacher friends and their welfare and support benefit. So $4,000 of shoes. Now shoes, uniform, stationery are necessary for the teachers in the classrooms at schools. Food is necessary. But if you look at those items, all except stationery is $4,000. Stationery comes in at $5,000. Right? That's the welfare that teachers are getting. Most important in the eyes of Setara Gyal and our cohorts for the teachers is $15,000 in photos. Good? Now you think this matter is finished there, right? You would think so. Let's go to some deeper analysis. Who are the beneficial owners of these businesses that these quote-unquote gift cards are to be used? Let's analyze that. But before we analyze that, let me make this point to you. That if you go to Beaners, you will find no shoe for $4,000. I am willing to put my head on a block. It therefore means that when the teacher turns up with his $4,000 gift certificate, they will be expected to pay the difference in cost. So if you go and you encounter a shoe for $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, you will be expected to pay the difference. Right? So, in short, these gift certificates are directing your business to certain places, first and foremost. Secondly, it's likely that you will spend more than 50% or more than 100% of what this gift certificate gives you to acquire whatever it is you want. Right? So if you go to Beaners, you gotta go to Pocket to add something to this $4,000 before you can get your shoe. If you go to Kirpalani, definitely you gotta go to Pocket to add something to the gift certificate before you can get uniform material. Where else did we have? Philip Williams Photography, possibility is you will take photographs to the value of 15,000. You ain't gotta go to pocket for anything. Right? Metro, yes, you can buy just $5,000 in stationery, but how adequate will it be? So again, I'm thinking you'll have to go to pocket. Right? So let's now look at the beneficial owners. I'll start with the one that I have on the screen. Venus Footwear. I think by now the whole nation knows that the wife of Glenn Lal, I don't know if they're still married, if they're divorced, separated, reputed wife, but Venus used to be owned, and perhaps still owned, by the wife of Glenn Lal. So what we doing? Is hush money that's sent in towards Glenn Lal? Because he's talking a lot? Are they trying to appease him like they're trying to appease the teachers? The jury is out there, you're pronouncing that. Call Live, good morning.
Yes, good morning to you, Kadaki. Good morning to the viewers as well. For that, those vouchers that they're giving out, I think the teachers should actually reject that. And one of the things that I'm considering as well is that voucher for people only in Georgetown. What about the people living in Essequibo, in Linden, etc.? They need to travel all the way to Georgetown just to clear that voucher at those specific branches. So you could see something, at least I'm assuming so, that is something that is not well thought out, unless maybe that's not all the vouchers and maybe they have other stores in other towns to accept cash grants. Since when is the best person to determine how a teacher should spend his or her finances? Most of the other persons they give cash grants to, why not do the same for the teachers and put it in the form of vouchers? And as we clearly know, it is to steer the money, the spending of citizens of Guyana in a certain area. And they know what the current action is, which is the money. Look into that and have them reconsider and relaunch a different program to suit. For those who are willing to take it, you wouldn't argue with them, but for those, like I said, who would be unable to have meaningful access to the stores, etc., due to location or whatever the case might be, they should have another alternative option at least for the teachers. So, but we know what the whole intention is, and I hope that they continue to direct them in terms of leadership, which is the GTU, in terms of leadership, as we could see with the recent, the vehicle duty free, and the other, I can't remember what the other one was that they removed from GTU. So you could see it's a direct attack on them, and then they conveniently bring about these benefits only at certain times, especially when the heat is on, when it comes to things like protests, etc., and they know that they're losing headway. They saw suddenly finances become available, but yet for the things that we actually need, it's not available. Because I continue to say, this whole, these things really make you think very deep in terms of what's taking place currently in the country. For example, a specialty hospital being conveniently built when COVID was planned. I think we could all conclude that it was planned. For those who are now doing their research, well, that is up to them. They could believe what they want to believe. So the specialty hospital was built under one government, and then the other government comes in and takes over. My feeling, and that's only my opinion, that once I wanted to play that role because they did not want to reject the entire task. So they took part of that role, which is to create the hospital, but they did not want to force, like what the government is currently doing, the vaccination on its citizens. So they decided to, I assume, quietly back out of office. That's why you see that while we're wondering why they don't have a resistance to this election, this whole election, what took place, it could be the case that they did not want to play this particular role, which is to force the vaccine on citizens as they're trying to do in all other countries. So they had to have somebody to fill that role, and who better to do that than the PPP? So that's what I'm saying. So even when the dust settles, we still need to reconsider who we're really voting for and who we're putting in government. And I think long term, that's why I like to discuss with Dr. Hines. We really need to look into, and I mentioned it before, in a new strategy, in a new leadership structure, especially for Guyana. I don't know about other countries, but we need to especially cut off the outside folks that comes in to influence our people and our leaders in a certain way. And I hope, after all this is done, because I'm sure, and when it's gonna done, we don't know. So I hope that that we have other plans in place. I hope people like Mr. Aubrey Norton, etc., those strong-minded leaders would sit down, come together, and realize what's taking place. Because if APNU goes in there, nothing would really change, Because one thing I also wanted to discuss, Kadaki, is this new discussion that I noticed on a lot of other programs going on right now, where the opposition is giving this impression that if they become part of this task force, a lot of the citizens of the country are going to suddenly be okay with accepting this the injection. No, it's not kind of hypocritical, because one time they're saying that we're the ones that question the government, we're the ones that doesn't accept things as is. But they have this assumption that once they are part of this task force, they're going to do a better job at persuading, quote unquote, take the injection. That is not a good stance to take either. Who says that when the opposition becomes part of that task force, that somebody like me is going to change my mind, that is going to say, okay, yeah, because they're part of the task force, I'm going to accept an injection. I don't care for the injection. I care for natural cure. If they're not going to speak of natural cure, if they're not going to speak of real substance to people, example, reducing cost of fruits and all these things that are skyrocketing on the market, nobody's speaking out about those basic things, but we just jump into an injection. And I said before, injection could never be a cure if your diet is terrible. So, like I said, I hope that at the end of this, and whenever we have time to breathe, people could sit back and really put some deep thought into what's going on, and allow us to make far conscientious decisions in the future in order for us to avoid things like these that are mainly coming from these first world countries, because they're basically following orders. I think we could understand that by now. That is why the injection also, the vaccination promotion is not going well. Why? Because they can't provide positive statistics. It's not the case that people don't want the injection. Where's that real persuasion in statistics to show that this vaccine that you're giving is actually working? Where's the statistics to prove that? And it's not there, because they're basically following orders from a first world country, and they're just basically implementing it at all costs. And we could clearly see that. So, again, I'll just leave it as this for now. Thank you,
Thank you, Colin. Call live, good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning to all the viewers. Sir, I think that this everything that is going on right now in the country is I think it's a smoke screen to the government's real objective that they have, which is complete control, and I think they're trying to I think they're obliterating us. Because they started with look at it, they're killing out the business people, the black business people, the black populace, and everyone is just standing there and no one is doing anything about it. Even the international community, they know what's going on in this country, and no one is doing anything about it. And at the end of it, I think they're really trying to get rid of the black folks in this country. I have listened to a program that Dr. Hines had a few Fridays ago, and we talk about the racism against mainly dark-skinned people of this world, and that is what is going on in Guyana. And I think it's called blackophobia, to be honest. And because even the light skin, even the mixed race people in Guyana. I have a mixed race friend who's doing really well, and whenever you talk to him about all this stuff that is going on here, he really thinks that the people are wasting their time and they're stupid and all kind of things, because he's up there and he's doing well, and it's not affecting him right about now.
He's closer to the soup.
And I told him that maybe his time will come, because eventually that's exactly what they're going to do. because the darkest skinned people of the world, those are the ones they try to obliterate. Even in India, they call it untouchables. The darkest skinned Indians, they try to they do that with them in India. They're low caste, the people in India. So I think to sum this up, I think that we need real boots in the ground, militant boots in the ground. Granger is a military person. The opposition leader Harmony is a military person. I mean, we can't depend on the Granger too much, but these people, they know what's going on. They see what's going on, and they're leaders, and I think that they're supposed to be more strong about the situation, because what we're going through here, we need militant boots in the ground, and we need to get a bit more drastic, because if we continue allowing this to happen to us, before long we're going to be no more. Because, like I said, it's the really darkest skinned people that they mess with. Look at all the Amerindian people. They're not saying anything. They sit in the corner. They're not representing us. Even other races, they're not saying. Only the black people are on the streets. Only the black people are feeling it, and we carrying everybody on our backs, right? So I do think that black folks need to get up and get militant and start looking out for themselves. Because this is getting beyond. We can't deal with this no more. This is serious. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Let's continue the analysis. Metro. Well, I don't know the owners of Metro, but I know it's some big businessman. Was it sold some years ago? I'm not sure who owns Metro. But I'm saying maybe you can go and buy $5,000 worth of stationery. It's not necessarily going to be adequate, but you don't necessarily have to go to pockets to that. Right? I'm just assuming these things, you know. Because remember now, please give me a chance to complete this analysis. Thank you. Call your life. Go ahead.
Sure. Good morning, Kadaki. Kadaki, I was kind of blown away this morning with that topic. But Kadaki, in the pandemic that is going on, that hospital is showing, and this is what maybe we don't see. I know, because I'm in it and I pay close attention, but at least she took the pictures and to show it. I have a friend that was in a hospital in Brooklyn, and while she was having problem breathing and all this kind of stuff, they intubated her. When they intubate her, you know the reason why they said they're not taking no responsibility, because they rush in when they're doing intubation. Intubation is supposed to have the best who can do intubation, clip, clap, and move on to the next person. Clip, clap, and move on. But these are inexperienced people who performing intubation on people. You know what I did to that girl? They could not help her any longer to do nothing. She desat. You know what I did? Push her in a room in the bed and leave her to die. You know what she did? She called 911. The police came over. They said, listen, someone called and said you put her in a room and leave her there to die, and we need to know what is going on here. Unfortunately, the big session started to carry on. Police running up in the hospital and everything. She got saved. She put it on Facebook, and when she put it out there, a doctor saw what she wrote, and the doctor tell her to come to whatever hospital that doctor was. When the doctor go in and they start to do the assessment, lo and behold, if you, because I didn't even think that way, they give her the intubation, and the voice box was too wide, it was too big, so air is getting into it. So much air is getting into it. What next to do? You're gonna sink and die. So who knows if they intubate those patients or they did not intubate them? Errors happen, and they're supposed to, at least with COVID, it makes you get dehydrated. You need to use a lot of fluid. You can use Gatorade if you don't have IV fluid to give the patient. Patient could drink Gatorade, or a patient can make lime water and drink. But because people are not exposed and they do not know of certain things. Next, Kadaki, this is what these people want. Put them in the COVID place and leave them there, let them die, because black people does not have an ends or a means. Whoever have money, gotta go to other hospital. Who don't have money, let them stay there and die. They let them die out. So this is what it is. And a lot of people, when they die, their family don't have money to go do autopsy, because I know people who said, doctors said they die of COVID. Their family took them at a private place and get them tested. They didn't die of COVID. They probably die of a massive heart attack. So, what are they saying? So you get 2 death certificates. One said you die of COVID, one said no. And it's exactly that, because they're working for the government and they would say that it's COVID. And in this country, people who do with COVID get extra money. The doctors, them get extra money. That is the reason why there were so many doctors. The African doctors, they were fighting them down. There's a lot of Guyanese doctors here, but you didn't hear them say anything because everybody wanted to be quiet. But the Africans never let up 1 minute. And there was another Indian doctor. He didn't let up 1 minute with them. He talked all the stuff, and the same home remedy. He said the same home remedy. And from the time you feel uncomfortable, do it. Why people can't heed and do what you have to do? Stop joining up with people. Stop ganging out. Do not hang out. Stay at home. 6 feet apart, even 12 feet apart. Because they have to investigate why Guyanese are getting sicker and sicker. If they take that Sputnik vaccine, what is it doing to them? Why they killing them out? So they have to know now who takes Sputnik, who take this one, who take the next one. And that's when you go and do your investigation to see what is actually killing the people them out of Guyana. So, Kadaki,
thank you, Carla.
Powerful topic you bring up this morning. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Okay, listen, I'm going to make a promise. I perhaps can go to 9:30, but y'all allow me to finish this analysis of this Teachers Care Package welfare story. Right? Good. So I'm saying I don't know who the owners of Metro are right now. But I'm almost sure, I want to bet, looking at the pattern, that is somebody close to the PPP, somebody looking like somebody close to the PPP, or something to that extent. Right? We now come to Philip Williams photography. Who's Philip Williams? I can tell you this guy is a brilliant photographer. As a matter of fact, I just remembered there's a portrait that I have, there's a portrait that I use on one of my profile. Me in a white dashiki. That portrait was done by Philip Williams, if I remember carefully, while I worked at DPI. Right? Philip Williams is the husband to the press secretary of the fat guy. Good? That's who Philip is. The husband to the press secretary of the fat guy. I will say no more. Shanda Scorpolani. The name suggests the beneficial owners. Again, I don't know these people directly, but you be the judge. The long and short is, this so-called welfare package, which spends the most money on photographs instead of materials and stuff essential for the teacher. On the face of it, it would look as though it is aimed at directing monies to people who are close to the government. And so teachers, you ought to be aware of that. Because everything except perhaps the gift certificate for photography you are likely to have to spend money on, additional money, to acquire anything using those gift certificates. Right? And so if you have to spend your money to acquire stuff, then I think it's just common sense that you should have the say in terms of where you're going to spend your money. Don't let people direct you with their pittances. Apart from that, I think it is very disrespectful. It is extremely disrespectful when you look at the amounts on those gift certificates which they're giving or planning to give to teachers as part of some welfare package. The best welfare you can give to teachers and any other employees is increases on their salaries. So instead of satiric gal and our cronies or cohorts trying to induce teachers with them small freck, they will get serious about addressing teachers' benefits and giving it to them. Because that is one of the things which teachers were mentioning on their strikes. Teachers are still left without their debunching payment. Debunching payment, if I understand it correctly, is an arrangement where based on your qualification and your years of service, your salaries are supposed to vary. But in the system currently, every senior mistress gets the same, senior mistress or senior master gets the same pay. Despite the fact that some are senior than others in terms of years of service. Some are more qualified than others. Some would have become graduates of the university several times over. Some might have a master's in education. But everybody in the same bracket gets the same level of pay currently. And the debunching money, as far as I understand it, is supposed to make a differentiation between those people, among those people. Right? Uniform allowance is still a problem. I think I can't remember if they were asking for risk allowance given the fact that they're operating as frontline workers in a pandemic. But address those things, right? And give the folks their just due for the length of time that it is due to them. Salary increases will make a difference to every employee, especially when they come to their pensionable years. Nobody wants a one-time raise here and a one-time raise there. It doesn't impact your livelihood at the end of the day. So stop coming with these whatever you want to, niceties, whatever you want to call them, to lure teachers. And teachers, I'm encouraging you. Continue your protest action and demand your just due. Because if you accept these pittances and you come off the street, you're going to be the laughing stock of the government. And they're going to continue to make you their footstools. That's what they're going to continue to do. Make you their footstools because you're not really standing up for what you rightly deserve. Right? I don't want to say too much about this apparent shift in the actions of the teachers since Mark Light came back. But like I said, I like to observe and then I comment. Right? I like to observe and then I comment. I will say to teachers, for as long as your union leaders, whether regional or otherwise, district or otherwise, call you to the protest line, go out in your numbers and make your presence count. And if you believe that there are officers among you who are not representing your interest, you know what to do for them or what to do to them. That's my advice. Let's continue to talk about the treatment of the teachers. Right? Because the teachers came out in their numbers and Sitarigia couldn't find an answer, they started their propaganda to say that teachers came out in their numbers because they were being threatened that if they did not come out, they were not going to get scholarships and they were not going to get duty-free concessions. Let's analyze this nonsense. As far as I know, there are 100 duty-free concessions. per year, or whatever the period. There are thousands of teachers. You get duty-free concession based on your category. Based on your category. How many persons can be influenced or coerced to come out and strike when they know that there are only so many duty-free concessions that can be available? And you have to be in that category before you can benefit from it. Likewise, scholarships. And so they made that accusation to lay the ground to punish all teachers. To punish all teachers. Because in reality, the word of duty-free concessions and scholarships was being managed by the teachers union through an arrangement they signed with the government of Ghana in 2018. Right? Where they had a board looking after duty-free concession and scholarships, and that board had representatives from the ministry and perhaps the Teaching Service Commission. And so again the question is, how can the teachers union use that to coerce teachers if there is representative or there are representatives from different agencies on that board? Right? But Sitara Galden make this accusation, and within a week of making that accusation, what they did? Check yesterday's paper, yesterday's news. They took control. They took away control. They took away the management of scholarships and duty-free concessions awarding from the teachers union. And so the government is now in control of that. Now you ask yourself this question, and I'm asking, you can provide the answer. Between the union and the government, who is likely to be more vindictive using duty-free concession and scholarships? And so it's my firm belief that this illegitimate cabal has taken away the management of scholarship and duty-free concessions from the teachers union because they intend to use it as a tool for manipulation. And this is how I see it playing. Those of you who strike as senior teachers, you ain't got nothing to get. Those of you who went to school in support of the government's call, we're going to reward you. You're going to get duty-free concession. And because we are the government, we're going to do as we like. And they can't challenge us. So y'all look out for this thing coming. And I'm saying again, for the teachers, stand by your union. And make this a part of your industrial action. Make this one of your demands. That the control of the scholarship and duty-free award must return to the Ghanaian Teachers Union. Y'all here? That's what you need to do. Stand with your union in demanding the return of this control, this management of scholarships and duty-free awards to the union. Stand with the union and demand that it be returned. There's a contractual arrangement with the government of Ghana and the union on this issue since 2018. And so teachers, I'm saying, if you don't stand for something right now, you'll continue to get the disrespect like you're seeing in the vouchers, and the disrespect like you're seeing with Sitara Gyal calling you all kinds of names and disrespecting you in all kinds of ways. Quite frankly, teachers said they were putting boots on the ground. I'd want to see more boots on the ground from teachers. I'd like to see parents support teachers with their boots on the ground, because this nonsense, according to UCQA, this confounded nonsense must stop. Right? It's now 9:13. I have reopened up back the lines, and so you can make your calls. I think there are a few voice notes which I need to play. They've been here a while now, so let me start from the bottom. See who is the first one. Voice note coming up. But this look like a lot. And let me tell you, I understand that there is big protest in Dartmouth following the killing of this businessman.
Good morning. You see what go on there? They start killing we out one by one. Now but SWAT team kill businessman during operation. What really happened to us in this country? Eh? All them blasted drug man, then I gotta go kill none of them because of them own. Right? Since them people then this take office, plane a fly. The sky suddenly get busy with them a fetchy thing. Right about me, hey, plane a go down, a come up like a them a like a them a discharge something behind me, hey. But yeah. Then on our SWAT team are the mercenaries them what them get there work for them. He start with Peter Headley. Now this one, hey, how many more?
That was one voice note. Let's go to the other. Where?
It's like where I work in this location right by the school. And the supervisor comes and tell me, but if I hear the instruction coming like this. I say no.
This one is very low.
Nobody is to enter the school compound.
This one is a little low, so we can't play the one. They got others, you know. Where? Oh. Alright, good. Voice note here.
Good morning, Kadaki, and all viewers. Kadaki is not that the people don't want to take the vaccine. It's the way how the incompetent government wants people to take the vaccine. Kidaki, the selected install orphan Halley is talking about recognizing. Guyana is in a crisis right now. Why this installed gentleman want to be recognized instead of dealing with what is going on? Anyway, let me get off of that for a few. Now, you spoke about Big Smith always issuing stories. Big Smith is a part of Ikins. Big Smith is in the knowing of everything that goes on because information is being sheltered from Clifton Ikins, another incompetent ayaki of the Guyana police farce, the Guyana political farce. Kidaki, at present, I do not have the time because I'm a bit busy. Okay? But Kidaki, you and the viewers, have a great day, Kidaki, and thank you. Bless, respect. I love you guys.
Yes, one more coming up.
Just remember you're attempting to swarm the police station the same way, right? Just remember how people put in a demand attempt to snatch his gun. Just remember you're planning to swarm the police station.
That's all worth playing again.
Just remember you're attempting to swarm the police station the same way, right? So just remember how people put in a demand attempt to snatch his gun. Just remember you're planning to swarm the police station.
Yes! So you had some voice notes there. I think I saw next one. Let me hear this one.
Guyana angrily called the latest statement an overt threat to our sovereignty and territorial integrity.
It is not a logical story.
It is to Venezuelans. Look at any map of Venezuela made in Venezuela. It includes an appendage called Zona en Reclamación.
We gotta talk about this one separately. Save this one for later. Yeah, the lines remain on 6225933 is the number to call. Let's wrap this up in about 11 minutes. I think we have had, I brought so much information to you. I don't know what you will do with all of that information, but the reality is, I'm informed that there's protests going on right now in Dartmouth. Tires are lit. And the people are out in their numbers. I was just told that the SWAT didn't only shoot Mr. Boston, or in Boston, but they took away his body. Right? Well, naturally, I think when police shoot you, they carry you away. Eh? I think so. I can't remember these things. I don't know these things. But they shot him and he was taken away. His wife and children are left there in chaos. And the people in Dartmouth are protesting. Right? People in Dartmouth are protesting. Let me see if I can share this video with you from AGP channel 67, is it? This one ain't going no place, man. This one ain't cooperating. This one like some people know. Let's see if I can get it elsewhere. Yes, so let's wait up so you can call while I try to figure out this or I can get you to see what's happening in Dartmouth. There you have it. Protest in Dartmouth as businessman murdered. Oh, I mean shot by the SWAT team. Okay, it seems as though you've had your fill. And so there are no other calls. Let's go out with this one, John King.
Sing whoa. Hey, my plea, oh, dear. A song from my land. Rose up early this morning to the sounds of crying. Another mother shedding her tears. Oh, yeah. Why all the pain and suffering? Why all the senseless killing? Could it be that nobody cares? heads. Oh no. So many sons lost in the slaughter, blood running in the streets like water. A gun in hand knows no friend. No, warmongers selling death in my land, getting rich off the souls of we children. Can you tell me when will it end? How many more die? How many more must carry this load? Oh, how many more? How many more die? How many more before we trot down Zion Road? How many more? You hear my plea. Send a happy hand for the country. In man, there's no solution. No. I'm begging for the children's future. Oh, Jah, drugs got them by the collar. How can we stop this mind pollution? Why must we carry this load? Too many starving and too many hungry. Too many homeless souls in the city. It seems like there's no. Too many big shots and too much connections. Too many loopholes in Babylon system. But yeah, how can your children go? How many more die? How many more must carry this load?
How many more? How many more? How much more abuse will you take? How much more disrespect will you take? The program has ended, caller. The program has ended, but I'll permit you. You're live.
Hi, good morning, Kadaki. I do hope that as the caller rightfully said earlier, that the pictures that they want them to take, this guy could build a database for whatever scheme they have. They should not go and take no voucher. Let the union, as you're saying that the union has their back, let the union continue to have their backs, right? And we have got to fight for this thing, that the union must be in control and not the government for the teachers, because the Teachers Service Commission is what they are the rightful employers. They should take note not to go and collect no vouchers from these people. I mean, earlier when you had the voucher and stuff like that up on the screen, I think they were shouting hallelujah, because it was like a what the thing name for them? It was like a promotion for them, right? Because you had it on the screen, and you know the teachers will look at it and say, okay, we might as well go and attend this function. But I know they should not take nothing from this government, nothing, because they don't mean good for them. That's my contribution. Thank you very much.